In this lecture, I will take you back to the security of our lambda function. When I introduced you to what lambdas are, I have briefly mentioned about the IAM resource policy and IAM role. The IAM role can also be called as execution role or execution policy for a lambda. This guy determines which other resources within the AWS cloud this lambda function can access. So whatever resources it needs to get the job done, all those permissions, the least number of permissions that are required will be specified through this IAM role. The IAM role itself will not have any permissions when we create it. We will attach security policies to that role, as I will show you in a few seconds. So first thing, what resources our lambda needs? Does it have the permissions to all those resources, the minimum permissions that are required? Second, when our lambda is triggered by external sources, do these components like DynamoDB, S3, API Gateway or SNS, SQS, do they have permissions to trigger our lambda? How do we control which components and the exact resource which has permission to our lambda? That will be configured through IAM resource policy. So AWS gives us two things, the IAM role to which we attach policies, and this is called the resource policy. So don't be confused, although they are similar. This is execution role that is used when the lambda is executed, and this is the guy which determines whether a particular component has the permission to trigger the lambda function or not. We will be exploring these in detail as we progress in the course. For now, go to the AWS console. Don't worry about these projects here. I have been playing around with them. You should have this first lambda from console and also first lambda hello function using the SAM CLI. You can open either of these. You will see a IAM role if you go to the permissions section. Once you are in the lambda, see this permissions tab, click on it. Automatically a role was created for you thanks to SAM CLI. Also, when you created your first lambda function from the console, it asked you, do you want to create a IAM role with the minimum permissions? You said yes, and it would have created a role for you. So this is the IAM role that is attached to this lambda function, and it determines what permissions this lambda function has. The role itself can't do anything, but if you go in there, click on that, it will open the role information by going to the IAM component. So here is our role under identity and access management. For each role, we can attach policies. As I said, by default, the role will not have any policies or permissions. We attach. If you click on this attach policies, you can add any additional policies for this role. Let's expand this and see what policy our role has. If you click on the JSON, there we go. Scroll down. This is the policy document in JSON format for our IAM role for the lambda function. It says effect allow, meaning you can allow or block. So here we are allowing. By default, the IAM role will not have anything to do. So we are allowing the IAM role or whichever component has this IAM role to take the following actions. Here you see create log group, create log stream, put log events. All these are to do with CloudWatch. So we are giving our lambda function the permission to write logs, create log groups, log streams, and then write logs. You can also restrict it to a particular resource within CloudWatch if you want to. Here, the star says it has access to all the logs, but if you want to restrict it to a particular log stream, you can specify the ARN, the Amazon resource number of that log stream here. So this is how IAM policy is defined. All this got created automatically for us, and in sections later on you will see this happens automatically if you just configure the template.aml file correctly. But you should be aware of these. The number one thing, the execution role, that is what you are seeing here, a IAM role that gives the permissions to the lambda function, and a resource policy. For this simple lambda, we do not have any resource policy. How do you know it? Go back to the lambda function, go down here. See this resource based policy, this section is currently empty. It says the lambda functions policy is empty because it is not being triggered by any other resources as of now. We are triggering it from the test console or from the console or from our command line. When you configure other components like S3 or API gateway to trigger the Lambda function, that is when this resource policy comes into picture. Again, you will learn how to configure all this from template.aml. We don't have to do anything by coming to the AWS console, but the concept is very important. Two things to remember: execution roles, which specify what a Lambda can do or what permissions the Lambda has, and then resource policies, which determine which resources can trigger that Lambda.